let's learn how to modify the default index view that MVC creates for you when you go create your MVC application in ASP.NET. So go ahead and open up the My First MVC application that we created in an earlier tutorial, and let's scroll down and take a look at our shared layout page. In the shared layout page, this will automatically be called by our View Start CSHTML page. So within the shared layout page, we can go make some changes. For instance, here's the title of the application. Now I can call it whatever I want, but just be aware that when it hits a render body, it will come back to whatever view you're working with, for instance index, and it might change that title to be something else, and this would take precedence over what you have back out in the underscore layout file. But let's go ahead, and what I want to do is we can go ahead and change that title if we want to, or we can leave that alone and let the index do it, which might be better, since if we let the view control that, every view might have a different title, and that will show up in your URL browser up in the tab up top. So we'll go ahead and leave the layout title the way it is, but then let's drop down and take a look at this nav bar, and I want to go ahead and add another menu item. So I'm going to use this nav bar header, and I'll copy one of those spans, and I'm going to go ahead and paste in another span. So there's now 4 icon bar spans, and then I want to go ahead and change the application name, and this is the title that will show up in that jumbotron in the top left corner, and we're going to call this School of Hard Knocks, spelt incorrectly because we'll just sort of think it's funny. And then we say whenever they click on that application link, we're going to take it to the index action method for the home controller. And then let's come down here, and I want to insert another menu item. So I'm just going to copy and paste a new menu item, and the first part says, what text do you want to show up? I want the text to be View Students, and then you specify what action method do we want to call. And we're going to call an action method that we're going to go write later on called View Students, and then you specify what controller. We're going to go create a brand new controller, and this controller is going to be called Manage Students. So that will be the controller name we're going to make, the action method inside of the controller, and then the text that shows up for the menu item. Now that we have the underscore layout page set up, which will control our menu, let's also come down to the footer, and we can go ahead and display the year, but where it says MyASP.NET application, let's change that to be School of Hard Knocks. And then we'll leave everything else the way it is. Click Save. And now let's go ahead and go back to our index.cshtml. Remember, this is the jumbotron that was created when you created your MVC application. First thing we're going to do is we're going to change some of these headings, and this heading will be called School of Hard Knocks. Yes, we like that name all over our web page. And then we'll change some of the text in that P tag, and we're going to say where we teach your student to cowboy up with an exclamation point, which is just a clever little phrase that means get the job done. And then we're going to go ahead and we want to make a link. So the first thing I need to do is have an image, which I've already gone out to the internet and grabbed an image, and you can go do that. And I've saved that image as a PNG file. And so now what I'm going to do is come over to my folder, my content folder, right mouse click on it, and click Add, and choose New Folder. and I'm going to call that folder images, and then I'm going to go ahead and drag my image that I've created over to that image folder. I now have an image inside of that folder. Now that I have that image, I want to come back over to my layout, and I want to write the necessary code to bring that image in and make it clickable. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this other link. I don't need that. And then I'm going to make a p tag here. And within that p tag, I'm going to type in an ahref, and I'm going to use a URL helper called action, which means we're going to set up an action link to something, and we're going to use this image as being the action link clickable area. In other words, when they click on this image, we're going to go to the About Action method in the Home controller. Make sure you notice how the double quotes are being used, and then make sure you also understand that this is razor inside of those double quotes. And then this image, what I want you to realize, this is just straight HTML, an image source, but the tilde, which is that little squiggly, says start at the root directory, go to the content folder, go to images, and go to the cowboyup.png. So if I save that and I ran it, we're now going to see we have our School of Hard Knocks, we have our new menu item that we've inserted, we have our School of Hard Knocks here where we teach your student to cowboy up, and we have our clickable image, which if I click that image, we said to go to the About Action method in the Home controller. So let's see if it works. And there's our About page. I'll go ahead and close that, and I'll stop running the program. And that's how you can actually have a clickable image and send it to an action method for a controller. Next thing I want to do is now I just want to come in and modify some of this other text on the Jumbotron. Now let's learn how to create another link and pass it parameters and actually call an action method in a controller. And so what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and wipe out all the text in between each of the divs, and in the first div I'm just going to put an action link that says add student. Now this action link once again is razor, the HTML helper, and it says it's going to create an href link for you. There's going to be the text add student, that's going to be the action method name, that's going to be the controller, and then I'm passing some parameters to it. I'm passing 2 parameters. Now I'm just hard coding those parameters, but you could actually have an HTML form and have fields on there and get the first name and get the last name from the form and pass those as a parameter to this action link. Anyway, so I've got 2 parameters. The first one is called first name with the name of Greg. The second one is called last name with the name of Anderson. And then we have another parameter at the very end, and we just put the word null there. This set of parameters refers to the route arguments. In other words, we're saying when we go and do this action link, our app is going to go to the route config and try to find a route map that matches having a controller, an action method, and a list of parameters, which if you went and looked at your route config, we do have that right there. This says you're passing parameters as HTML arguments, which we don't have any. The way this actually works is that there's overloaded methods, and if we did not put this last parameter, then it would think that these parameters are being passed as HTML arguments. So that's why we just add the null value there. In order to make this action link work, we need to go to our home controller, and we need to add a new action method called add student. and we're going to receive two parameters of type string, a first name and a last name. In this case, I'm just going to say return a string concatenated with those parameters. And notice that that match our return statement. So if I came back to our index controller and I ran that, we would see we have our add student. And notice when I click on add student what the actual parameter is. You can see down below on that screen in the corner, it's saying call the home controller the add student method and pass it the parameters first name of Greg and last name of Anderson. So if I click on that, we should say hello Greg Anderson. I can go ahead and stop that from running and come back to my MVC, and I'm going to wipe out that action method that I had, and instead of returning a string, I'm going to change it to be an action result, and instead of returning that string, return a view. But notice that I also come in and I add two items to the view bag, which is the data dictionary, a key value pair. And I said viewBag.firstName is equal to the first name parameter, viewBag.lastName is equal to the last name parameter, and I can actually return that to the view. And then what I can do is put my cursor on the view for that action method, right mouse click and choose Add View, and notice it brings in the name of that action method. Go ahead and click Add, and then I'm going to come over here, clean that up just a little bit, and I'm just going to put in a p tag and say hello, use the view bag for the first name, view bag for the last name. I'm going to go back over to my index, save it, and run it, and I should be able to see my landing page show up with the add student link. And when I click on add student, it then takes me over to that new view and it says hello Greg Anderson. So that's how you actually create a view, create a controller, pass parameters to it, and all doing that through an ActionLink helper and also using the action helper to make an image clickable.